Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Njist invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Njist.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. And again, I'm back with another amazing and special guest. I got Dr. Giles here. But what I like to do, Dr. Giles, is have you introduce yourself, like who you are, what it is you do, and then you and I are going to rock and roll.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks for having me on your show, Max. I really appreciate it. I'm Dr. Giles, and what I do is I help people get sober. So I'm an addiction medicine doctor. I'm a physician, MD, and for about the last 20 years in all sorts of venues, in treatment centers, in very specialty boutique private practice with really famous people. And then more recently at scale, my team and I help people get through the stages of detox and early recovery, manage the medical issues in psychiatry, and get them on their way from a doctor standpoint to the beautiful life that recovery offers. I do this work because I went through it myself 25 years ago. I was faced with my own problem, had to get help, or at least had the opportunity to get help.
Right.
Mercifully made that choice, and fell in love along the way with this particular strange, weird, interesting, beautiful branch of medicine, which is not gone mainstream yet. It's still kind of a stepchild in the medical world. It's mysterious why somebody would just not do what's good for him, not just follow doctor's orders and don't drink and stay sober. It's I find endlessly fascinating. And currently I'm in New York City, so that's where this takes place. My daughter is about to graduate from college tomorrow, and so the family has assembled here in New York. But usually I'm on the West Coast. That's where most of our work is, and I grew up in Southern California. And love it too, but there's great spots all over the country, of course, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy you're here, Dr. Giles, because now I get from the medical side, right? There's so many, and I'm sure you're like me, right? Because both of us being in recovery, we want to break that stigma that goes along with addiction and mental health, right? I mean, if someone went to you and I don't know if you've ever had it, but I've had conversations where people are just like, oh, it's that guy over there, in Tent City with, the brown paper bag, and you're having a great conversation with them. And I've gone, well, I used to be that IV drug user, and they go, and you see their mouth just drop like, what? Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, the stigma, it unfortunately, it's still out there that we can't change, but look, I have wonderful Dr. Giles here who's living proof that happens. And you're right. Like, let's go back to your journey, like where it started. Sure. And the struggles you went through are the challenges that you had to overcome that led you to become an addiction doctor.
So it is interesting. I just want to say one thing about stigma. You get a couple of guys who've been through it, right? And we go on podcasts and have conversations that are very public about these foibles, right? About these ridiculous things that we did behind our misunderstandings of ourselves. At least that's my experience. And it's difficult to get a guy to talk about his current struggles with substance use. Most people don't say, hey, I think I might have a drinking problem. They don't just announce that publicly, or even to their closest companions or most intimate family and friends. Most people don't do that. Usually it comes to light once it can't be hidden anymore. It's obvious. Right. So people don't lead with I think I have a drinking problem, but you get someone sober, you take someone who's gone through this and had the experience of recovery, and the light goes on, and they see not only is alcohol and drugs not the way to go, but it keeps them from the life they want, right? Keeps them from the happiness and keeps them from the fearless happiness that they wish they had.
Right.
To plug. So But you get somebody who's been through it on the outside and they just won't shut up. Oh, it's so great. Oh, I used to have a drinking problem. Oh, I was sticking a needle in my arm. Oh, I was a drug addict. Well, that's true for me too. And so when you have someone who's been through it, I suppose you and I understand there's still stigma and there are guys trapped on the other side of it where they can't be honest or they don't feel like they can tell the truth. But on the back end, it's like ex-smokers, right? They won't they'll let you know that they're an ex-smoker, and you don't have to guess. So there's stigma for the people who believe that, and it's understandable. I think stigma is very understandable because they don't want to pop their heads up, claim they need help, and then can't get it or it doesn't work. That's what they're afraid of.
Right.
If you knew, I'll ask you a question. I'll be the interviewer. If you knew what your life would look like, you said 22 years,
Mhm.
23 years ago, if you knew it would look like this, would it have been hard to convince you to give up the old life?
Absolutely not.
Of
Right. No.
course not, right? Of course not. Yeah,
Yeah. If I had that magic crystal ball, we would have been like, oh, I wouldn't even life would have been a whole lot different. But
exactly. And so the trick is, how do we help people see the promise? How do we help people see the promise of recovery? What's available if they're willing to let go of some old ideas about themselves, let go of some old behaviors, and go through the awkward, uncomfortable challenge of feeling like you have this down, which is what all things are at the beginning when we start.
right.
So if we could do that, I think you would get rid of stigma because you have stigma about your dirty shirt until you realize there's a cleaners that can clean it, or a washing machine, or a bar of soap, right?
Right.
So if you know there's a solution, then it's not stigma. I think it's because people don't believe it'll work, or they think they're too broken, or they think their situation's too messed up, or weirdly not bad enough, right? Like I still have a job,
Right.
I still have my spouse, I still have my friends, I still have my legs,
Right.
and not bad enough. So my journey is mostly in academics. So I grew up in an alcoholic home. My dad was an alcoholic. I was really sure I didn't want that. I didn't want that to be my life. So I was always really careful around alcohol, very, very careful. And I also somehow figured out that academics was going to get me out of the life that I grew up in. Uh, that I was seeking control. I think I wanted to understand so that I didn't didn't have the same life that I grew up with. That led me to university at Berkeley, and then to medical school at Davis, and then surgery internship, and then anesthesia residency. So anesthesia was perfect for me because it was super complicated. Really, it's the intersection of all patients. So from birth to 100 years old, all patients with all medical problems, heart disease or kidney disease, or be a teenager, growing funny or whatever. It's all medical problems, and then all surgery. So cataract surgery and foot surgery and
Yeah.
delivering babies and everything in between. And for me, the more complicated it was, the more I liked it. Now, what was living underneath this is I thought if I only knew enough, then I would be okay. That was I wouldn't tell you that, but that was my guiding sort of principle. If I could learn enough, then I could be okay.
Right.
Well, I learned a ton, and I did not feel okay. I could see that the horizon approaching when I was finished. I was in my senior year of residency. I could see that it wasn't going to fix this feeling I had of being not right, not good enough, don't fit, don't belong, something missing. For most of your listeners who've been through this, they've had that version of that feeling, right? Something,
Right.
only thing wrong with this picture is me in it, right? There's only something
Right.
wrong. So probably because I'm not sure, but probably because of watching the effect of these medications on the patients, and curiosity, and just this increasing pressure that I um, couldn't couldn't keep doing it. Right? I couldn't say what I just said to you, Max. We've known each other for not that long.
Right.
And I said, oh, you ever feel like you just don't fit, you don't belong? I could never imagine saying that out loud to another person back then. So I kept this inside. And I tried to manage on my own by using, and when I used to tell the story years ago, I would have to repeat the name of it because no one ever heard of it. And they were like, what's that? I'm like, oh, it's the pain medicine we give in surgery. And but now I say fentanyl and everyone knows what fentanyl is, right? Because it's become this international scourge and wicked substance that we're dealing with. But back then it was exotic and weird. And I thought because I could control it, or at least I thought I was controlling it, that it was somehow different than my dad drinking gin. But of course, it's not. It's not any different at all. It's just a different molecule, but it's the same problem. I can manage my feelings if I use a chemical. And the worst thing happened with that was it worked. And because it worked, I kept leaning on it. And because I kept leaning on it, I expected it to do more for me. And my routine was always I would gut it out during the day. I would get through the work, being in withdrawal at that point in my last few months of training. And then after work, I would get my relief, which at one point was some sense of intoxication afterwards. But then eventually it was just getting back to zero, getting back to normal. And then finally, toward the end, it was not even getting back to zero, right? It was just to get a little relief from feeling physically horrible.
Right.
And promising myself every day that this would be the last day, and then breaking my promise to myself the next morning. And stashing a little and waiting till 5 o'clock or waiting till the day was over. And then I was on that loop. And then mercifully, I had a department chairman who spotted this pattern, and he asked me about it. And I took that as an opportunity to ask for help. And it wasn't noble. It's just I didn't have any other options at that point. There was the ruse was up, the jig was up, and so I'm like, okay, I don't know how to stop this. He said, I'm glad you said that. And I came in, and that was the beginning of this journey. That was the beginning of this recovery journey, mostly marked by me not being in control, mostly marked by me saying, okay, whatever you, I'll try your way because my way got me here.
Right.
And I didn't want to die, but I didn't know what else to do. So fortunately, I was surrounded by a bunch of other guys who had been through it. I think that's a lot of how this works is people who've been through it are the ones that are most helpful, oftentimes. It's just some sort of understanding, right? Like, oh, you ever tried to kill yourself using injectable fentanyl? Oh, yeah, me too. Oh, good. So we're on even ground. We can talk about the rest of the reality because we're not, no one's looking down on anyone, right? No one's condescending on anyone.
Right. Exactly.
And so the program that I got involved in turns out to be the best and the most successful in the history of treatment. It's got somewhere between a 90 and a 95% 10-year success rate. I was involved with it for stabilization and then early recovery for several years, 5 years altogether. I wasn't in rehab for 5 years, but I was connected and accountable and had to do drug testing and all the rest of that stuff for several years. And besides seeing this world of life without substances, what I got out of it was going through life without leaning on anything to change the way I felt.
Right.
So I got through the birth of the kids. I got through the death of my dad. I got through going back to the OR and this, where all the trouble was. But it's not the OR. It's up here, right? It's in here. That's where the problem was. And so I was a different person when I went back 3 years later, 3 years after leaving the hospital, going back, finishing. They tacked on some more time. The board was like, well, you want to make sure you're okay, which is
Right.
fair. That's fair. But I got through all that, and then I was working in anesthesia when a fella called me from Southern California. I was in Northern California doing cardiac anesthesia, and he said, hey, we could really use your help at this treatment center. That's 2005. And I thought, well, I did kind of have an idea that this is pretty interesting stuff. So I said to my wife, our kids were little. I said, let's try this. I think this is going to be a good thing. And if not, I can always go back to the OR. So I turned out to never go back to the OR again. I started doing addiction medicine. I wound up getting boarded twice in addiction medicine. Now I'm a fellow of the American Society of Addiction Medicine. I've been doing this job for 20 years, and I believe I made the right choice. I definitely gave up a lot of anesthesia cases, but I've seen miracles like I know you have also, that are just the people who you never think would make it are living beautiful lives. And to have a front row seat to that, and to think that maybe some of the stupid things that I did were helpful ultimately because I wound up in this area, is that it's funny, and it's also humbling and amazing.
You know what, Dr. Giles, it's humbling to have you here, right? From your point of view, because, and you're right. I mean, we've both been around long enough to see those miracles, and that's what keeps us coming back.
Yep, I'm hooked.
You know what I mean? Whether you're the doctor or the case manager or support staff, when you stick around long enough, you kind of get addicted to seeing the lights come on, like you mentioned earlier, and seeing the patients on a pink cloud, right? Like, and then trying to help them navigate so they never, because I mean, I've been through stuff as you have in your recovery, both good and bad, right? Both stuff that was really challenging. Like my audience knows, like 9 years ago, I would lose my sister, then my brother to addiction. He would, lose, the battle. And then my mom 6 months later on Thanksgiving Day to a broken heart. And then I would put my youngest daughter into treatment for the first time that following Monday. So it was,
wow.
But, but I like to say, when hanging around fellows like yourself, right? People that have been through it and understand that there's nothing that's going to, that a drink or a drug is going to make better, that I have learned, right? Or I wouldn't be sitting here with you and trying to, bring to light people that have been through it like yourself, which, I know there's people in my audience going, right? They don't think of doctors of actually going through it, but they're there to help. You know what I mean? And it's so it's such an honor to have you here to share your story and how, right? But I think there's something that you said that's so key, and that I want the audience to understand, right? He met people that were on the same playing field as him, who had gone through what he had just went through. So it makes it easier, right? Like, because how many times have you heard a patient or a client say, "Hey doc, I got this therapist, she's just out of school, she doesn't understand what we've been through," right? You get a counselor or one of the support staff, and they go, "That guy gets me, or she gets me because
it's the funniest thing." Yeah, I think there's something to it. I think there's, listen, you don't have to have diabetes to treat diabetes. You don't have to have diabetes to be an endocrinologist. You don't have to be pregnant to deliver a baby. So most of this stuff, it's not required to have had that experience, but there is something special about this. And it could be what you said a minute ago, which is about the stigma. So here's something that I've come across about trying to sort out. So some of your listeners probably have an issue with substance use disorder, whether it's active or they've gotten a handle on it. And some of them are just interested, curious people who don't have this problem, but they're listening to the podcast, or maybe they have a loved one. There's a reason for them listening, but they don't themselves suffer through it. And so so here's a question that you ask people. And if you ask alcoholics, and that's a general term for people with substance use disorder, they'll answer a certain way. And people who don't have alcoholism will answer a completely different way. So here's the question. Have you ever wanted to be drunk and sober at the same time?
Well, yeah, yes.
If you ask an alcoholic, they're like, "That's exactly what I wanted."
Exactly. That's
precisely what I was looking for, right?
That's what we're shooting for.
And you ask somebody who doesn't have that problem, and they like, "What does that mean? That's not even a question."
I love that. I love that, Dr. Giles.
So, but when you get one of us, when you're talking to somebody, and I get a chance to do that all the time, fortunately. When you talk to somebody, to one of us, then you ask that question, and they're like, "Oh my God, he totally gets it." Now, here's the thing. It doesn't matter if I get it. It doesn't matter. Right. It matters that the person with the problem who's trying to get well believes that there is at least someone who understands. Because when I was on that side of it, I had hoped that there was someone on earth who I could talk to, just at least one other guy. And I could say, how when you want to be drunk and sober at the same time, or I didn't have that formulated. It was like, you know how you feel like you don't fit and you don't belong.
Yeah.
I wanted to find that one person that I could share this with. And well, turns out there's millions of us, right? Turns out there's millions of people who it's not one, it's a lot. And
Right.
just go to any meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous or Celebrate Recovery or Smart Recovery or in anything like that. Probably at the gym, if you ask around 3 or 4 people, you'll find 2 of them have been through something like this.
Right.
So it
Exactly.
turns out they're not rare at all. What matters is the person with the trouble believes that there's someone they can talk to. That is what matters. That's the key. Because once you start telling on yourself, once you start speaking reality, well, then everything gets better. You start to hear yourself saying, I really feel like having a drink. Is that true? I mean, you hear your own words and then you've got a shot at doing something different. You're not just robotically going through.
Right. And I think that's key. What you said is having someone that you could talk to, right?
Mhm.
Like for me, it was my sponsor, and we're two opposite ends of the spectrum. Where back when I I couldn't sit still, right? I was the one, as I'm trying to talk to him, I'm pacing his office, and he'd be like, "Man, it's just," I call him my Yoda, right? Because he was so calm.
Right,
Um,
right.
and and but when I would tell him stuff, you know what I mean? Because I remember there was one, like after my last relapse, he said, dude, there's one thing I want you to do. One, go to meetings, right? Like
Right.
you're not sharing for 30 days because you have nothing to share right now. I want you to listen and pay attention because you are a good talker, right?
Mhm.
Take the cotton out of the mouth, our ears, and stick them in your mouth. And
Mhm.
all those sayings we have. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And he's just like, now I just need you to one, be honest with me 100% and be vulnerable. Because the only way I'm going to help you is if you tell me what's really going on. And like you said, I would tell him stuff thinking he's not going to understand. And then he would tell me things that I just went, he gets it. Like now I trust this guy. Well, he was there through all my relapses, but like now I really trust him because he's telling me things that I'm going through without even sometimes telling him. He's like, I can see it in your eyes. Let me tell you a
Right.
little bit about myself and what I went through. And I'm like, oh my God, you
This
are.
sound familiar? Yeah.
It
How'd you
sounds so
know?
familiar, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And this is what I love, right? Like there was a lady I met who was a speaker, very classy, at the time had 20 plus years, and she shared this part about, she goes, it doesn't matter if we come from Park Bench or Park Place. We're all the same because we have the same problem, but we all have the same solution. And it clicked with me. And she gave me a hug and she goes, you understand what I'm saying? And I said, I totally get it. Right.
Right.
And it's just
Right.
one of the third meeting I ever went to, a lady, you kind of touched on it earlier, but she goes, I got good news and I got bad news. And I'm like, oh God, here we go again. Right. And she says, the good news is we get to feel, but the bad news is we get to feel. And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I didn't get it at first until like months later. I'm like, now I know what she's talking about. But
Yeah.
you run into people, and like you and I are having this conversation, I can kind of picture it back when you were getting sober because I know that feeling where,
Mhm.
right, you've gone beyond having fun. Now it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't want to get sick and I need to maintain so I can get through my day. And some, as you know, get more severe than others, right? Where it just everything falls apart. But it's so,
The three stages, right? Fun with problems,
yeah,
and then just problems. So
right, exactly. And that gets ugly, right?
mhm.
But thank you for being here and being so open with the audience, because I think, like you said, there's people in here that are part of our fellowship, let's say, right? They understand it. And then there's ones that I know are going, oh my God, like this doctor gets it. Like he understands, like, because he's been through it. And it was funny because I worked at a hospital at one of their programs, Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach. They have
Yeah, I know that one. Sure.
right. So they have a
Steve,
family.
Stephen I. He's an awesome guy. The
Oh,
doc down there.
he's an
Yeah.
amazing. I had a using dream. I've had two dreams that I remember. One was with him in it, and he was. I'll tell you that after. But it was so funny. I told him in our clinical meeting, and he about fell out of his seat laughing. And I go,
That's
"You
funny.
were." You wouldn't even share, Dr. I. And he started laughing. He goes, yeah, that sounds about right.
That's
But
funny.
anyway, so we were doing the family session, right? And on Tuesday was my day to kind of give a little, uh, like a speaker, to
Yeah, presentation.
presentation. And so at the end of it, I'm walking out with this gentleman and his son, and the guy was a cop, big dude, like 6'5". I'm like, well, you're blocking out the sun. You're so big, and he would ask, he goes, how come my son can't just quit? So I gave him the analogy, and my audience have heard me share this before. And I said, well, I want you to go to the Fullerton train station. And I go, I want you to stand in front of a train that's coming at you at 5 miles an hour. Put your hand out and stop it. He goes, well, no, eventually that's going to bowl me over because it's twice my weight, right? And I said, well, imagine your son's addiction is the bullet train in Japan coming at you at full speed.
Right.
As much as he wants to put on the brakes, he can't until
That's a good analogy. That's
and
very
he
good.
was he shook my hand and he goes,
Finally get it.
I get it now. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, his son's still sober, and that was 10 years ago. But talk about some of those experiences, like
Yeah.
kind of give some hope shots for the audience who may be struggling.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So yeah, I've seen just so much. And we had a lady who came in not long ago who went to bit of a reunion of sorts with two of her college friends, two of her best friends from the sorority, and they had stayed in contact. But they decided to meet. They were moms of little kids themselves, all three of them. One had a couple, one had more. They all had at least a couple kids. One had more, and they decided to meet for spring break. And they went to spring break town in Florida, where they had been when they were in college. Good, totally normal. This happens all the time. It's probably happening right weekend, girls' weekend. So these three ladies, they meet down there, and one of them gets the idea to get some cocaine because that's what they used to do. They drink, do a little cocaine back when they were in school. They weren't doing this anymore. They were busy with their lives and busy being moms and working. They had jobs too. And so whatever. So they get it. They ask around. They go to a bar. They get some cocaine. They go back to the hotel room. And this is the moment they're gonna do it. And so the cocaine, it turns out, was loaded with fentanyl. It was more fentanyl than cocaine. And by the time the third one did some of it, snorted some of it, the first two had passed out, and then she was going down. She got to the phone, and with the last bit of her consciousness, she pushed 911 and then waited and succumbed to the fentanyl. The EMS got there. Everybody had stopped breathing. They were all three overdosed. They started to do CPR to see if they could get them back. And one of them was gone. First one that did it was too far gone. They couldn't bring her back even at the scene. The other one, they managed to get her heart started, but her brain was gone. It had been too long without oxygen. And the third one, they were able to get resuscitated. She spent 2 weeks in the ICU, and she survived intact. So 2 out of 3 of these ladies lost their lives to cocaine, which they had not used. So sad, right? Sad. And that's the reality we're dealing with. Is this stuff is in all kinds of stuff. It's in marijuana. Another friend of ours, or friend of a friend of ours, but in our social circle, kid was in college, used 1 pill of Xanax to relax, but it wasn't Xanax at all. It was fentanyl. So we're fighting a different kind of enemy. Fentanyl deaths are down year over year. I don't know if you saw that in the news. They're down 24% nationally, except Nevada. It's weird, and maybe Utah. But the thing about that, I was just at the American Society of Addiction Medicine meeting earlier this month in Denver, And we were trying to figure out why these fentanyl death numbers, they're still very high. It's still over 80,000 per year. People are overdosing, dying from fentanyl. But it's down from 110,000. So, or down to 85 from 110, something like that. So it's down, and there are different reasons. Some say it's because of Narcan. That Narcan is more available and people are being resuscitated. And that might be true. There's multiple reasons. I think the main reason, honestly, is that we saw this big increase in deaths during COVID. Alcoholism, acute pancreatitis, car crashes, suicides, murders, all spiked during COVID. And I think we're passing through that phase. I think we're getting out of that phase. And so you're seeing the downside of that as we work through the COVID bubble, because it's trailing data. So good, that's good. I mean, that's good that we're back to work, back to life, and not wearing masks and things like that alienate us. But the message I would say is, if you're caught in this, you never know what's in there. You just don't know. And even with the test strips, and even with people are smoking it instead of injecting it, and that's probably a little bit safer. But again, if it's a little safer, then they'll keep doing it, and then one of these days it's not. So that's the bad news. That's the scary stuff. On the flip side, the bright side is I don't want to say her name because I want to keep her anonymity, but one of my staff is one of us, which included losing her professional license, spending time in the justice system, losing custody of her children when they were small, and brilliant young woman. I mean, this should not have happened to her. And good family, good everything else. Just once you get caught up in this, it can really grab you. When she hears this, she'll know who I'm talking about. What she did was, in almost 10 years, despite the overwhelming odds and things looking bad and that it wasn't ever going to be okay, she made the courageous move, which was to put up her hand and ask for help. And she has stayed sober ever since. And what came back to her was her professional standing. She worked through all that. She's my right hand. She's in the company. She's as good as it comes. She has been through it herself, so she understands the compassionate side and also the bullshitting side, because when people are active in their problems, they'll work a story.
Oh yeah,
and so she knows how to cross check, and she knows how to get to the bottom of it and stuff with empathy and with love. And everything came true for her. All the good things came true. So kids back in her life, and they love their mother, and it's the most beautiful thing to watch them blossom under her care. They're proud of her, like, I mean, you can't imagine. And that's what happens. Now, it doesn't happen immediately. It was hard in the beginning.
Oh
She
yeah.
had to stock the shelves, so to speak. She didn't go right to night manager or front store manager of the grocery store. She had to do a lot of sweeping and a lot of cleaning, so to speak, metaphorically, to get to that point. But she never lost faith, and she never gave up. And she surrounded herself with good people and people who were sober. And now, the gulf between where she was and where she is now is incomparable. So the difference between being caught up and feeling trapped, and the difference between saying, hey, I'm trapped and I need help, is just a decision away. So if your listeners are thinking, oh, how do I do that? Just put up your hand and ask for help, and you'll get it. There's help to continue being hooked on substances, and there's help to get off.
Right.
I'm writing a new book about how to get help even if you can't go. So most people don't go to treatment. It's only about maybe 5 or 6% of people with the problem go. We say stigma is a big part of it. I'm sure that's part of it, but there's also the cost, the inconvenience, the kids at home that you got to watch, other intangible costs. What's going to happen to your job? What's going to happen to your cash flow? All that stuff mixed in with, is this even going to work for me? And all the regular problems, right? Even if you had infinite time and money, you still have the fundamental problem. So we talk about that in there, and explore different ways that people can begin where they are make a start with what you have.
Right.
Start before you're ready. We talked about that, about podcasting. And that works here too, right? Go to the gym before you think you can go to the gym. Ask for help before you think you're going to get it. And these are old ideas. I mean, that's the Bible, right? These are very, very old ideas.
Right.
This is not new. Anyhow, so there's some stories of hope. I hope for someone who's wondering if it can happen for them too. I mean, there's you and me and this other story, and there's countless stories. I mean,
Countless.
countless.
We would be here for weeks if we even just touched the surface of all the stories we've seen where
Too many.
they want to say miraculous turnarounds, right? Which is true, right? Because, and this is how I put it to the clients I work with sometime, right? And I said, look, I don't get mad at you when you use, right? You're supposed to. Science has proven it's in your DNA, somewhere down your family lines. It's been happening for a while. So I said, look at it this way. When you stay sober, that's where the miracle lies. That's when you're telling your DNA, I'm not going to do what you tell me. I'm going to do the opposite. Right. And because they'll get the look in their eye, like, really? That's and I go, yeah. I said, I can't get mad at you for relapsing. I go, I mean, I did it myself. Like, one, I'm not going to do that. But two, that's what we're supposed to do. That's what our wiring, until we, build those tools that keep us, or like you and I are having this conversation about sobriety and, and all the work. I mean, because what an inspiration, right? I'm sitting here with Dr. Giles, who's gone through, and it doesn't matter where you come from. He can tell you exactly how you feel when you're coming in. All of us can, that have been through it. And that's, the beauty of recovery, right? Because like my big goal has been lately is, like you said, help people get treatment that can't normally get it, but also be there for them, because we know statistics prove that long-term treatment works. So like, even when they leave, sometimes you get 30 days and you're like, well, you're just barely scratching the surface, right? That's our kind of step in and go, look, you need some extra accountability. That's what I'm here for, right? I'm here, the guy, that you can call when I'm about to go get a drink, right? And I'll help you walk off that ledge because I've been there, and, you don't have to. And
valuable. It's so valuable. Yeah. And it's just in time help, right? It's not that you're hanging around all the time. It's that when that feeling comes back, and it does, I mean, it does even down the road, they've got someone to reach out to. It's life-saving.
And you have to, I think, for us, I'll speak for myself, but I know that when I was in those moments where I could have went left, right? But then I was taught, nope, you call me, we'll go right.
Yep.
In my head, it was like, okay, if I go left, I'm going to be all alone again. And this whole mess is going to start over, right? Because left to my own devices, as they say, I'm going to screw everything up. But if I can go over here and talk to my sponsor or someone, and thank God, like, people ask me, well, what did you do after your last relapse? And I said, well, I was in the 2 meetings every day for 3 years. And I go, you don't have to do that. But I go, that's what I realized I needed to do to keep me on the path. Right. Because it's funny, right? We get our health back and stuff. And I remember my first year, right? You got to imagine. So my addiction, the down dirty lasted for like 9 years, right? Where I was almost looking at 3 years in prison because I didn't do anything the judge had offered me, all the easy stuff.
Sure.
And I remember my first year sober, right after the last relapse, and I'm going from job interview to job interview, and I'm continually getting, we went with another candidate. And I know in my head, it's because I'm a felon, right? I remember I told my sponsor, right? And he laughed, and I go, what are you laughing at? He goes, I know that feeling, because you want to get a job and you want that instant. I'm the CEO. You need to hire me at this pay, and I'm going to run your company. He goes, go flip burgers. I go flip burgers. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It was the best advice, because he made me really think. He said, you're not going to get a job until you're humble enough to go flip burgers, right? So I said, okay.
It's true.
I went home and prayed. I said, God, if you want me to work at McDonald's, I will work at McDonald's. And the next day, I got a call back from a place, and that was my journey back into the workforce. And everything since then has gotten better, right? And look where it's led me. I'm having this awesome conversation with Dr. Giles.
It's a beautiful story. Yeah, that's a beautiful story. That's great.
You know what I mean? But it's, I think recovery it's such a beautiful thing, because someone put it to me this way. Max, look, we get to live 2 lives, the best one last.
I love that.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, we do. Like, we don't. And as you know, right, because of the fentanyl, I mean, I've even heard where the cartels, water their marijuana crops with fentanyl water. So
we see it. Yeah, we see it.
and I did heroin twice. Second time I got so sick, I didn't even like it. So I was more of a meth alcohol guy, right? Like,
sure.
But like, I see some of these young kids come in who tell me they've had, like, in a month, 5 overdoses and I'm just like, sometimes I don't even know what to say. You know what I mean? Like, I try to pull the best, but I just put my arm around him. I go, just sit still for a minute. We're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We're going to get through this. Yeah. Well, yeah, no one's born opiate deficient. So you just get through that. The other thing I thought about what you said about the second best life second is we say happy birthday, right? So when it's in sober anniversary, we say happy birthday, and it's kind of corny. Just well, wait a minute, I wasn't newborn when I did this. I was a grown man, but it is like a new life. Right? It's like being born, because you see the world differently. If you allow yourself, you'll become a different person. That's what's on offer, and you get to become the person you always wished you could be.
I had a mentor, a guy, I consider him a mentor. He says, I finally became the man my dog wanted me to be.
Yeah, exactly.
When I first heard that, I laughed so hard. And it's true, though. I'm like,
true.
But listening to you, Dr. Giles, I mean, like I said, we could go here, but how cool. I'm sure when you got sober and you went through your process, right now, you look at medicine through a whole, like, was it Dr. Paul, the whole new different pair of glasses, right?
Yeah, right.
And you get to see people differently. Like, I know I do, right? With, like you said, more compassion, with more empathy. Because I, in the beginning, was made by my grand sponsor because I would get really angry. That became my new drug of choice, right? And he's like, you're going to get yourself beat up if you don't calm down, right? But I would say that 4-step prayer on page 67, right? And religion every morning when I got up, along with my other prayers. And then at night, it would be one of the last prayers I would say before I go to bed. So I've calmed down so much as I've gotten older and stayed sober. But what were, like, even in your recovery, what were the things, that you struggled with early on the most that you could tell people about that will give them hope if they're, like you said, they don't know, like, how is it going to turn out, right? Like, how is that going to happen for me?
Well, I struggled with the idea that I was never going to have fun anymore. I thought the fun days were over.
That's a common theme for all of us.
They said, we're not a glum lot. I'm like, yeah, sure you are. And what do? How are you going to enjoy yourself? That I struggled with. The idea that it was okay to have fun. The best thing that happened to me was at the meeting that I was going to. There were some guys that for the summer had gotten together to do whitewater rafting on these inflatable rafts. And I heard them talking about it. And every weekend they would go rafting. I was the new guy. I was only a few months sober. And one day they could sense me eavesdropping and inching closer to this after the meeting conversation. And they said, "Hey, Jason, do you want to come with us? There's an open spot." And now look, you don't know me, but that's exactly the kind of thing I would never do. So whitewater rafting is 6 guys in a raft going through the rapids. And where I was in Northern California, they have great rapids. And when it's really hot, they open the dams because they've got to run the electric generators to run all the air conditioning. Right. So there's peak power demand. So the rivers are raging, class 4 and class 5 rivers. And I had done kayaking, but this was something that you're just one of the guys, not in charge. It goes all day. You have to stay in the boat. There's no, I'm done with this. I'm just going to walk home. There's steep canyons. There's no, so, and I'm not running it because I don't really know what I'm doing. I can paddle and I can maybe swim, but I have to take direction. So contrary to my nature at the time, I said yes. And so I went on this rafting trip, and it was with guys from the meeting who I had heard them talk, and we had heard each other talk. But this environment was different because it was an hour and a half up to the river and back, and lunch where we pulled out and had sandwiches and whatnot. And it
Yeah.
was a whole day together with sober guys, and that's when I got to know them rather than just know them at this superficial level. And we had fun like you wouldn't believe. So I have a photograph from that time, and they're all gone except me. I'm the last one of the six left, not because they relapsed, but they just lived their lives and passed away from various reasons. And so learning that I could have fun in recovery, that's when things changed. And the trick, of course, is just to say yes. And one of the best bits of advice I got from one of my best friends is, if you're new in this, be prepared to revise everything you think about yourself. So I thought I was a guy who couldn't go on a raft. I thought I was a guy that couldn't have fun with relative strangers and be all day and not be in charge. And turns out I was wrong. And that's the gift, right? So ironically, what learning that I was mistaken was actually the gateway to freedom. And I say this all the time. I'm wrong now about a whole bunch of things. I don't know what they are yet, but
Right.
it'll come out, and it'll be presented to me. And then I get an opportunity at that point to hang on and be dragged or let go and see things in a different way.
I love it. I love it. That's where we have that something in common. I went on 2 rafting trips with sober members of and the first one was the best because it was they had there was snowpack, and there were, like you said, there was a bunch of water, so we got to experience really good rapids, and
Uh-huh.
it was fun to see because my sponsor and my mentors always put it. He said, if you want what we have, do what we do, right? And
Mm-hmm.
back when I was early, right, I wanted my kids back, and I wanted to have a good relationship. And so my sponsor says, watch the guys that have what you want. Watch how they treat their wives. Watch how they treat their kids. So this first trip was with families and a bunch, but there was no drink, nothing going on. It was so much. I mean, I never laughed so hard in my life on that river trip, like especially on the rafts. There was a couple guys, I swear they could be comedians, right? But their jokes they were cracking. I mean, they even had the strangers that were passing by laughing so hard, right? And they were giving us a look like, have they been drinking or something? Because these guys are having way too much fun, right?
Isn't that great?
I'd love it. And then the second one wasn't as big, but it was still a lot of fun, right? To fellowship and to be around, like you said, to say yes to something and have so much fun and go, wow, I didn't have to pick up a drink or this or that. Got to be myself and just enjoy God's country, as they say, and my friends, and right. And yeah, like I love that. This has been such a wonderful time, Dr. Giles. So I really, again, I'm
Fun chat. Yeah.
right. So
Remarkable similarities. Mhm.
yep. So I'm going to ask you my questions now. A couple that I'm going to start with is fearless, right? It's the name of the podcast and the book I wrote. So what does fearless mean to you now, Dr. Giles, and how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
Well, it's a funny thing about that. I think it's normal to be afraid. And I think plans destroy fear, plans destroy anxiety. So if you're anxious and afraid, if you make a plan, especially if you write it out, you can get your thoughts out of your head. Somebody else can look at it also. We've got a wise person around. I think that's the trick, is if you want to go from the fear of the unknown, reduce it to writing. Get a pencil, get some paper, write it out, and you'll see. And but I do think that in order to do anything meaningful or anything worthwhile, there's always a bit of anxiety or a bit of fear in there, because we have uncertainty, we don't have control, we don't know how it's going to go. Alcoholics, we hate to not know, and
That's for sure.
right, we want to control it, and so I'll say this: I think that happiness is proportional to your ability to tolerate uncertainty. So if you're okay with not knowing, then beautiful things happen. If you feel like you have to know, you have to lock it down, well, then you'll settle far short of what you could have if you allow it to develop on its own.
I love it because that's why I put the Y in happiness. There's a big reason, right? It starts with us on the inside. I love it. I mean, this has been such an amazing time since you just answered happiness, right? So, now I want to ask you, if our audience wants to get a hold of you, ask you questions as a physician in the addiction field.
Best way to reach me is probably through Substack. That's the place where I'm spending the most amount of creative time in between writing this book. So you can find my Substack at Dr. Jason Giles Substack. There's some articles in there about stuff. I'm interested in the small aspects of this, the individual recovery, and also the big aspects, policy and things we do as a society to make this more likely or less likely. So we talk about stuff like that in there. And I'm pretty bad at maintaining them, but you can find me on the socials, and if you reach out to me there, I'll respond to you there. So you can find me at Dr. Jason Giles on any of the socials.
I love it. I love it. Well, like I said, this has been an amazing time for me, Dr. Giles. I'm sure the audience has learned so much from you, and thank you for taking the time of being here.
My pleasure.
I always like to say you're not quite off the hook just yet. Now I get to ask you my favorite question I ask about. And it goes like this. So, Dr. Giles, what is the one piece of advice you could give my audience to help them grow as human beings and become better people?
The thing that was most meaningful to me, which is the only thing wrong with you is you think there's something wrong with you.
Oh, that's deep, everybody. You better say that again, Dr. Giles.
The only thing wrong with you is you think there's something wrong with you.
I love
There isn't anything wrong with you. It's just a story you're telling yourself. Tell yourself a different story.
I love it. Right. And that'll go a long way. Thank you so much. Like I said, it's been a wonderful time, Dr. Giles. I could spend like hours here with you and ask you tons of more questions. And,
Me too.
I know you're with your family and stuff, but thank you again from the bottom of my heart for being here. But you heard him, everybody. If Dr. Giles made you think, if he taught you something, if he made you smile, and my famous, if Dr. Giles made you go, I like that, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people can find the podcast. And again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.